interview for Skull Freestyle. Yeah! Hey!
All right, welcome to episode 2 of Pass the Mic, a show where we like to highlight upcoming artists, upcoming entrepreneurs, and most importantly, difference makers here in the Twin Cities. And today I have a really, really special guest on this episode, and I've been waiting such a long time to do this sort of collaboration with this particular being. A little bit about this guy before I introduce him. Him and I go way back to the college dorm room of Bennett, our junior year, where we first met, and that same year I got to executive produce my first album alongside this guy named the College Film Mixtape. And this man for sure is an entrepreneur. He is a upcoming artist that is absolutely on fire here in the Twin Cities, and he is for sure a difference maker. And it is my absolute pleasure to welcome to the show Obiora Obakwelu, also known as Obi Original. Welcome to the show, my man. It's good to see you.
Yes, sir.
How you living? How's 2020 been treating you? What are your takeaways on the year so far? How's it been?
Oh, man. Well, I can just tell you it's been a year of introspect and retrospect. But for sure, I've been blessed. So it's been a good year so far.
I love to hear that. And so when you talk about your blessings that you have incurred in such a tumultuous time, what does that look like for you? What kind of blessings and good things have happened for you?
Yeah, first off, it would be at least the Ozone Creations, the baby that has been building up for so long, getting to a place where it's being accepted by not only people here in the metro and the Twin Cities, but outside in the country and then outside in the whole entire world. So I'm grateful for that, super grateful. And then also too, as you can see, this is a new spot.
Yes, sir. Where are we sitting right now? Where are we sitting?
Well, we're sitting in Studio A of Ozone Creations. That's where we're sitting right now.
I love the sound of that. Okay, so what happens here in Studio A of Ozone, and what is Ozone for the people that don't know anything about it?
So Ozone Creations is a media collective of 5 artists. We're based here in Minneapolis, and we focus on mostly pushing out Afrofusion and fusion music out into the United States. We started officially last year with my own release, Tsunami. And then since then, we've been coming out with a lot of other, good singles and projects.
That's awesome. And this right here is a spot where all the magic happens.
Oh, yes.
It's really, really cool. I remember thinking back to junior year, you taking half of our dorm room and making it a studio. And like I said, we made a whole mixtape for Collegeville, St. John's, where you and I went to school. Yeah. And to see where you're at now is truly remarkable. And I'm really happy for you, and I'm really happy for the collective.
Appreciate you, man.
See where else you guys plan on going. And so talk a little bit more about the importance of the collective. I know you guys said that you came together last year, but what is the importance of you guys specifically focusing on Afrofusion, a genre that's not really highlighted and not really popular in today's world, but what makes you guys want to focus on that? What's the importance of that, and what's the impact that you guys hope to make with that?
Yeah, just to kind of give some deeper aspect to it, I'll just use myself as an example. I was born here in Minneapolis, but I come from a Nigerian background and household. So I went to school listening to Lil Wayne, all the classics from Nas, growing up with a lot of rap, but also listening to a lot of old school African records, So I would always like to say that not only with myself, but a lot of other creatives in my, background that have my type of background, we're just seeds that are nurtured in different soils. But now I feel like with what we're doing, we're kind of saying unapologetically that is what we are. that's where we come from, and that's what's going to set up where we're going, at least when it comes to black consciousness, especially because the nice thing about Ozone Creations and doing Afrofusion is actually pushing the black narrative of saying, okay, it's not only this one way, because like now we have people like Breezy Too Fresh, that's part of the collective, one of the top rappers in Minneapolis. He's been a rapper that's been hustling and bustling for a long time, in Minneapolis, but he's of Cameroonian descent. Bakari, one of the greatest singers, R&B singers in Minneapolis now. Facts. Too, of also African descent. So I think that's one thing that we're pushing with our music and with our identities as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to what the future has for us.
Yeah, it's looking really bright, and I love that you touched on your influences earlier when you were growing up, the Lil Waynes, the more hip hop and rap centric artists. And I remember being in college with you and you producing 3-4 songs a day, you rapping every single day, you writing every single day, and you finding people at St. John's to collab with and make music with. And one thing that I like to reflect on is the music that you were making then, and to see where you're at now with actually being focused on creating tracks within the music, getting on the guitar, recording a riff off of that. It's a lot more calculated, it seems like. Truly, and so what I want to ask you is what was the time, what was the spark that made you transition from the more hip hop to the Afrocentric vibe, and how did you get the others on board with escaping their main genre that they focus on to also make that transition over to the Afro?
Yeah, I would say it was a steady process. It wasn't something that happened overnight. A key time that I can point out was when I was working with Bakari, Kuku Ka, and Breezy in St. Paul Midway. So we started recording a lot of songs, and we started out doing a lot of like the trap stuff that I was known for, like you were talking about. But there came a time when I said, as a producer, what if we just blend the cool things that make all of these artists special to the African sonics that I've been, experimenting with. Because another thing, a key point of it too, that made me want to go with it is seeing what, our brothers and sisters back at home have been doing with the African music industry. It's been very, a big inspiring story to see somebody like, for example, Wizkid. I can tell you 10 years ago when I was back home in Lagos and I was a little kid, everybody was, hitting up like, Wizkid songs all the time, right. When he was with Banky W. Then just to see him be a global phenomenon, and I think there's power to say, especially as an artist, that you are completely independent. And I think that's one example that I hold, to, set the standard to, just like them as I'm doing the business here. Because now I guess what we're trying to say here now is that we do have artists that are of the same caliber with the same sonics, but, we're from America as well. You know what I mean? But we always love and appreciate the culture back home.
Yeah, and that's really important. And I love that you touched on Wizkid being one of your main influencers, and especially when it came to that spark and making that transition. I love that you also led and forged that path, and that everybody was willing to also step up to the plate.
Because it wasn't really it was a humbling experience for everybody. Even for myself, because even at the time, a lot of people could have said no, but how everybody was coming on the tracks, they gave their own specific flavor. Yes. That, now when we were, performing at Poorhouse, performing at the Caboose, at 7th Street Entry, different people and different races were all messing with the music at the same time. And even for me, because one thing would be like, okay, we would record a track, we would have a show, perform the tracks live, and then just to see, how the crowd reacted, for me was a big, like, okay, this is gonna work.
Right. Yeah, so especially speaking to your performances, one thing that I loved seeing about Ozone perform live when you guys were at, First Avenue and 7th Street Entry was the fact that you guys actually had a band on stage and you guys were able to curate such a special chemistry and a great vibe for people, like you said, of all kinds to come out, enjoy great cultural music, but also music that reflects the times that we're in now. Yeah. And so besides like Wizkid, who else do you find inspiration from when it comes to this specific type of genre?
I think one thing I always give respect to is my native music. So where I come from the Igbo tribe of Nigeria. So we have a lot of high life musicians, and high life is a type of music that was big back in the day. And again, these were all the records that used to play at all the African parties that we used to go to. So when you think about the idea of the feeling, the music, conducts the feeling of wherever you are. So imagine a place where, there's food unlimited. You see uncles and aunties enjoying themselves. Yeah. People always, having that camaraderie of family. Yeah. So especially in the African community, that's always important. And the music always has something to do with it. Right. So even when you speak about Playboy Cardi, the one thing I loved about his music and his production, shout out to Pierre Bourne, one of my top guys I look up to, even at that time, was the music was stagnant. It was a loop. It didn't really change much. And that's something that we always talk about.
Yeah, like James Brown.
James Brown.
King of mumble rap.
I always say to people that mumble rap is literally our generation's funk. If you look at James Brown, like Sex Machine, that was like...
Get on up.
Like ad lib, get on up. It was on there. It was a loop.
Yep.
Going again and again. So, I always say like that music always has space for an artist now.
Yes.
To, be complex. Now, a vocalist or a rapper or a singer can become an instrument. And that's how I've always kind of approached my production or any person I've worked with, when it comes to studio work.
Absolutely. And one thing I've always respected about you is you're such a man of your culture, and I love that you touched on that and how our experiences with our aunts and our uncles and having that privilege of resources really kind of guides us and shapes our worldview. Yeah. And I remember like the first day you and I moved in with each other, one of the first questions you asked me was, where are you from? Mm-hmm. And I was like, Minnesota. And you're like, no, but like, where are you from? And I was like, wow, I've never been asked that, and I've never had to think about that. But that was surely indicative of how important culture is to you and how it's kind of shaped your worldview. And how you move, and I really, really, really love that. And so you have an EP coming out titled, what's it titled?
It's going to be titled Waves.
Okay, so the Waves EP. What can you tell the people about Waves?
Well, it's going to be my first ever body of work.
Wow.
As like,
Solo.
As an artist.
Right.
So that's a very exciting thing, and and it's an exciting time to be releasing something like this too. Yeah. The one thing about it too is it's a story. Mm-hmm. It's a story from beginning, middle, and end, from the total of 4 songs.
Right.
And that's one thing that I'm excited for, because although I know we live in a time where a lot of large albums, when it comes to like traditional albums, are not popular. You can say 30 albums because you want to get a lot of streams are popular, but in the respect of an album, them not being that popular, you can still do it with an EP. You see, so that's why I'm so excited to have this out. It's going to be a stamp of what I see, Afrofusion being and where it can go. So it's just going to be just a starting block for a lot of other collaborations, projects, and productions to come.
Cool.
Yeah.
And talk a little bit about the title. Why did you choose Waves? What does that mean, and how does it correlate with the whole project altogether?
Yeah, I chose Waves mainly because just paying homage to Black love. One thing that I noticed, and something that was a void, at least in the spectrum of music, was really digging deep into, okay, why can't Black people have a love that has a happy ending? It seems like directly or indirectly, you always kind of go through things, or you see in personal relationships or relationships that might be in the social media just not ending right or always having issues. So the project speaks for itself. I'm excited for people to listen to it, but it goes through that beginning, middle, of end of saying things can be rocky, but if we are there for each other through the struggle, we're unstoppable.
Right.
So
100%.
I think that's a big message, that I'm looking forward to a lot of people
and that's
listening
something
to.
I didn't really take into consideration through the times I've listened to your EP is how it exemplifies Black love. And I know that with the EP, it's very transitory, meaning that each song is a different vibe, but it's also a different part of the story. And each song is a transition.
Exactly.
And that definitely reflects life, how we're always constantly in transition, and we go through the waves of life, and it's all about figuring it out. And I like to say that life is practice. And the reason why is because nobody's perfect. Everything is a learning experience. And in order to really, suck out the marrow of life, it's all about learning and getting better each and every time. But I absolutely love that this EP represents Black love and what it can be, opposed to what we typically see in the media with, entanglements.
So wahala. Anything like that, man.
But
True.
Moving on, I love the whole vibe of
thank you.
the studio. You got a lot of great amenities here. I'm sure that you are cooking up just absolute madness. One thing I really want to touch on is your record player.
Oh, yeah.
Because this thing, I think, is almost the icing on the cake. And every time I'm over here, you're putting on a record. So tell the people a little bit about the record player. You have a plethora of records.
Oh, yeah.
What would you say, are maybe your top 3 records that you possess and that you jam out to most?
Oh, God. Well, when it comes to the record player, it stems from just music mediums being different from different times. So my uncle Chris, he used to be a DJ here back in the days in the 80s when a lot of us, immigrants came, and he has a lot of old high life soul funk records, so I always wanted to play them to their best capability, and also take care of them. So that's what made me get this.
Right.
One thing I would say is that it's a very nice stress reliever at times too, because now for me, when I listen to music, I'm not going to be rushed. A lot of people, when we listen to music now, especially in current day, it's just rushed music.
And instant gratification.
Yeah. So even in its own context, because I can tell you now,
Yes.
this is out on vinyl.
Yep.
This came out just last year or a year or two ago. So even the context is that a lot of albums that are of latest album they just came out are available.
Right.
So why not listen to them in that fidelity, and take your time to actually and take the music and actually think about what the artist actually wanted to pin down. And also too, I love the fact that you can actually, for example, with Igor, you can read
Yes, the track listing and everyone that's featured.
Everybody that was part of the production. One thing that, shout out to Spotify that they do in the credits section, but, it's not really seen that much.
Yeah, and it's so much different to listen to a song on Spotify versus a record player. Player, it's so much more open. It's so much more. There's so many more elements to the song that you might not have
you might have heard the first time.
Exactly. So, well, Obi, you are not only a musician. Yeah. Not only a difference maker in the community, but you're also an entrepreneur. Talk a little bit about your business and where you see it going and what it's all about.
Yeah. So Ozone Creations now, not only do we have 5 great artists that we're pushing when it comes to marketing and their brands, but we also facilitate a full functioning recording studio. For the uses of people getting their tracks done, their projects done, or what we've been doing as of late for the past month is voiceovers. So any local businesses that want to have, different advertisements put on, different,
really
mediums,
smart.
it's possible just to record it here professionally and locally as well. Because to even, allude to your point, being at St. John's, what was I doing? Political science. But at the same time, I was, doing my schoolwork, but, putting the time and effort into the studio as well. Yes. So I think the balance of the etiquette of dedication and, discipline with school helped with what I'm doing now.
Right. Along that same breath, did you ever imagine that you would make it to this point of where your music is at now and where it's heading? What does it feel like to be in the position you are now when you reflect back to college?
It's a blessing, man, because I had confidence that sooner or later it was going to happen, but sometimes it's just you don't know how. Right. You don't know how it's going to happen. You don't know how the story is going to be in the middle. You know what I mean? But I had a good feeling that it would end up this way. Right. And this is just going to be one chapter, and it's just so many other chapters that we have to write in our story. That's how I see it. Because even alluding to your point that you talked about earlier, life, you only get one shot. And
life
you better
practice.
Yeah, you got to J.K. Rowling that thing if you want to do it really well, and everybody has the ability to. Just get that pen, start writing.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. Well, I couldn't explain how much I am proud of you, even if I, was J.K. Rowling, because I'm extremely proud to see where you're at now, how far you've come. Business is booming. You're at the top of your game, but you're not even at the top of your game because you still got way more to go. I'm really excited about the EP and when that's going to drop and how the crowd and your fans are going to perceive that and take that. But ladies and gentlemen, that is a wrap with Pass the Mic episode 2 featuring Obiora Obikwelu. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Original in the house. Yes.
In the house.
Use my government name, but it's perfectly fine if you use my government name. It's a beautiful government name. Thank you,
it really is. Obiora. As always, I'm your host, Ramsey Sorrells. Be on the lookout for Waves EP. Hit my boy Obi up for recording sessions, mixing and mastering sessions. He even has a nice little business card. Make sure you hit him up. Yes. Call that number right now. And shout out to Bryce. I didn't shout him out last time.
Hey Bryce, shout out to you, man. Thank you so much.
On the video, on the editing,
with the clean setup,
making it happen in the small studio. And be on the lookout for Triple Kings. Be on the lookout for Ram Realty, and we'll catch you next time.
Shut